day I listen.
All right, everybody, we are back. New format here for Tony and I. We're talking about school stories on Blab. Going to be a great conversation today, talking about empowering staff. Tony, all the way on the East Coast, and after about 3 hours of stressful time with the Packers, it looks like they're going to come out on top. So life is good for everybody in the Midwest. Well, not everybody in the Midwest because
not a Vikings fan. Yeah.
But for me, life is good, I guess. So we will live to play next week as a Packer fan. You, as a Jets fan, are looking forward to the draft. I understand that, which is good for you, I'm sure.
Please, we could have been in the playoffs. That's all I'm saying.
Could have been. Yeah, that's great. A lot of people could have been. A lot of games were played, and then all of a sudden, here we are.
No, it's Rex Ryan's fault. It's been Rex Ryan's fault for like 10 years.
Yeah, right. He's got a chance to get back at you a little bit this year too, right?
Exactly. That's exactly the case. So I'm really excited about this new format, and I'm excited about these conversations because I think that we're at a place where we are able to like broaden the lens and really include voices from across all platforms and all constituent groups, right? So whether we get staff on here or fellow colleagues on here or kids and parents, and just to kind of hear what it takes to make successful schools, because we know from our work that it really is a combination of all these different people and all these different players. And we just are fortunate enough to be able to spotlight them here. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it sounds good. And it looks like, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we're going to make sure we'll definitely launch the podcast part of this as well. So that's been kind of a cool deal to like just kind of navigate what that's going to look like. And we are, we're all in on trying to figure out like what that's going to look like and who's going to be invested in it. It went from everything from the, place to host to what like a logo would look like. Because we are honestly like, you couldn't find two less artistic people in the world than the two of us. So we're just like, so what does that really look like?
It's
true. So I had my son, Aiden, today kind of take a look at like, oh, yeah, Aiden, could you draw something like that? And then he's like, yeah, of course I could. And he drew, everything that he drew was better than anything that we would come up with. And then the 9-year-old got involved, and she's like, well, Daddy, we could just fix it like this. And then all of a sudden we could do this. And that was even better than anything that we had.
Awesome.
So, of course, we got plenty of people helping us out. But if anybody else out there,
I think we should do a logo contest. I think we should do a successful schools logo contest. And I think that we could have some really interesting entries. Amy might be able to do something right now from the runway in O'Hare. Maybe we could just slap something together there. I think there's a lot of potential, but clearly I must say that the children got their artistic abilities from Andrea. Clearly,
absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, that's right. This is
artistic does not run there on that side of the family.
You know what's funny is I used to when I was teaching, we used to have whatever assessments that we did for when I was teaching second grade, and I would always put Stickman drawings on the assessment, like Stickman shoveling snow or Stickman, kicks a field goal or something like that. And it's funny, it's interesting because that seemed like nothing people, but kids remember that, and I remembered it because when I was in high school, I had a high school English teacher named Mr. Rory that did that. For every assessment that we had, he put Stickman was doing something, and I did it with the second graders, and they loved it. So that's just an impactful, piece of, just being part of high school. I don't remember anything I did in his class, honestly, I don't, but I remember that those things made me laugh, and that was a cool deal for me.
So, are you suggesting that a Stickman should somehow work its way into our logo? There be a,
I don't know,
holding
just kind of holding us up like a puppet, maybe. I'm up with anything. It doesn't really matter to me, I guess. But it'd be badness.
I think we need to get kids on it. That's what I'm saying. Paul is not. He's not here right now, but I think I might have to tap him on the shoulder tomorrow and tell him to come up with something, and then we'll do a comparison across the the child work, and then we'll decide if they're worth even not paying. Clearly, because
we're not paying them. All three of these children in this house have lived in here they've been rent free for a very long time.
Yeah,
and they're expensive. It's ridiculous. And they don't pay any rent.
No.
At all. None.
And they don't plan on ever doing that either.
No. I got some shoveling out of some of them, the two of them today.
I don't even get that. I do not even get that.
Right. That's right. Okay.
All right, good.
Jessica, thank you. Jessica wins Blab tonight for telling me that that Green Bay has now defeated Washington. So life is good. And we are moving on to the next round. So we're talking empowering staff. we're going to talk about empowering staff and giving them options and that kind of thing. And one of the things that I think is really important as we think about like what that could look like for our staff is really thinking about like what the notion of empowerment really means to people. And I think there's this level from an admin lens that we say, okay, we really empower our staffs, but we still make them do things in a certain way. And I'm guilty of it as well too. But if we're going to really empower people, I think we really have to define, like, what does that mean for you? If you're going to empower staff, what does that really mean for you?
I think you're right. I think there is something about having clarity about what empowerment looks like, because, and I think even we've had this conversation about, we talk about student voice, right? So like hearing people is like maybe level one, because you're empowering them to access their voice, but then acting on something that comes from that conversation is level two. And I think that oftentimes is the disconnect within schools. We do give teachers a space to reflect in a lot of space in places, or we let them talk during a faculty meeting or whatever, but then we don't act on that kind of stuff, right? And so that's a missed opportunity. I think, but the flip side of that is kind of meshing that all together, right? Because if you do have a lot of voice, which we value and we look for and we want, how do you make sure that we're all working towards a common vision and it's not some fragmented, like everyone's all over the place? So empowerment, but with purpose and with intentionality. I think that's the tension, like figuring out how those kind of meld together.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because I don't know if, like, I feel like we have to figure out a way to give people the opportunity to move and grow. And if we're always telling them how to move and grow, I think that tends to be a disconnect, because it's not really about us. We started our professional growth model plan about 3 years ago.
Right.
And one of the things that was really important to us in that model, first of all, it was totally teacher driven, which was awesome. Like, they took it from the inception to where it is right now and talked about like what it could look like. So that was really important to me. But at the same time, I really wanted to find a way that we could empower staff to really direct their own PD, because when it came down to it, I feel like, I think, the notion that either you hire new people or you make your people better, that's how schools get better overall. I think that's important. And if I was just telling them how they need to get better, unless there was a need, right? But if it's a teacher doing great stuff, I think it's really important for them to find the way that really whatever works for them to get better is really the direction that we should take when it comes to how we develop PD.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that people know how they learn best, right? And so even if we just look at that whole learning styles thing, are people more visual in nature? Are they more auditory? And so giving people the opportunity to learn in different ways. So even if we come up with sort of some focal points, right? We know that we want to focus on reading workshop this year, or we know that we want to focus on project-based learning or whatever. I think it's a matter of giving people access to that information, or space to access that information in a way that's most meaningful to them. And so I'm someone who loves to consume infographics. Like, I love to look at them and look at all the details. I've had a couple of teachers say to me, Tony, those are too overwhelming. There's like way too much going on there. So, all right, then here's the accompanying blog post that goes with it.
Right.
Also had the teachers, and I'm sure you've heard it as well, I love the TED Talks. Can you find a TED Talk on this? Sure, here it is. Watch that. So I think the medium doesn't have to be one size fits all, which is what it's been traditionally, right? Like either someone standing up and talking or everyone doing the same exact thing at the same time. Right. It really should be, even at the basic level, that's where voice could be accessed. So this is how I need to learn this, Tony. All right, you want me to do Reader's Workshop? This is how I need to learn it. Let me go visit a classroom. Let me go watch this video. Let me read this book, whatever. And I think giving people options is also important.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And if they own it, they're going to do everything they can to improve that, their capacity to learn in that way. And that's really important to everybody, I think. But, what we found in empowering, so our journey has been more about like, give them the opportunity to kind of move it forward and grow and learn on their own, and then figure out a way for them at this point. Hopefully we're getting to the point where we can really, have them display that in a way that they want. And we're still getting there. We're still trying to figure out what the best piece is for that. But when we first started it was, when people were developing their goals for the year, they still kept them really, really close to the vest. They weren't really jumping out, but it had everything to do with us from an administrative perspective. What we had done in the past, we had done PD to these people for all of these years, and it's literally like just beaten down. Like, why even try? Yeah. So for us, it was just so important that whatever you did, however you got better, as long as you could prove to us that you got better throughout the course of the year, that's all that mattered to me. That's it. And we never, got to the point where it's like, well, you only grew this much, so that's a problem.
Right.
Whatever their journey was, and George Carroll says it best, everybody's A to B is different. Well, however you get to B, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me as long as you get to B in some capacity.
You see, our friend Ross wants to hit the call-in button, but it's interesting that Ross has just joined us because I don't know if you saw it today, Joe, but Ross wrote a blog post. The reason I really actually
is the Cheesecake Factory blog
that's
post?
The only reason. Yeah, yes, that's the reason I clicked on the link because I saw Cheesecake Factory.
Were you hoping for like a coupon or something like that?
I was like, wait,
God, that's awful. That is awful. You should read Ross's stuff because he's got good stuff, not because you think there's food attached. My God, I'm starving here just talking to you.
It is all about the graphic, and what I thought immediately was like, I want that chocolate peanut butter cheesecake cake. It's amazing. Anyway, but that's a whole
not even a thing. Not even a thing.
Oh my God, it's the best thing. I'm going to find it and drop a link in here. But more importantly, and Ross, you can chime in here. I read Ross's piece because there was this sort of this idea, and I actually reached out to him because I was a little bit confused about whether or not I actually understood what he was saying. But this idea that we keep the focal points narrow so that we don't overwhelm people by what we're throwing at them. And so that it's not like, here, okay, this week we're going to learn about that. Next week we're going to learn about this. And next month we're going to do this. And the way I understood it was, kind of limiting that so that there's not a bazillion focal points, but letting people go deeply within, a sort of minimal number of focal points, but yet balancing that with voice from our staff, right? So that it's a collective decision, that it's not one person, not me telling our teachers, this is what you need to do, but here are the things that we want to explore. So what are the 2 or 3 things we want to get into deeply, which is what you spoke about. It's your teachers telling you what they want to get in through deeper. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's some power in that. Oh gosh, you're encouraging Ross to.
Yeah, for sure. Because instead of listening to you talk about Ross's post, why don't we just listen to Ross talk about Ross's post?
Sure, we should.
Because there's honestly, I fell asleep twice when you were trying to figure out what you were saying, so that's a problem. Ross, how you doing, man?
Hey guys, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
So we were talking a little bit about your post. Why don't you talk a little bit about what you wrote, why you wrote it?
I know. I almost cried because I thought it was a good post, and then Tony asked for clarification, and I was like, "What did I do wrong here?" It was like maybe I need to do a follow-up post.
No. Ross, he needs clarification on how to make a peanut butter and jelly. Let's just be serious about that. So understand that it's not you, man. It's not you.
There's a finger I'm raising below the screen that I want to show.
Can't do that. It's video.
Dr. Sanfilippo. Sorry, guess Ross. Go. What were you going to say?
No, and I think Tony summed it up nicely. It's just the whole less is more approach to professional development. And in the post I cite the work of Doug Reeves through some of the professional development work that he's done, and also Jim Collins from Good to Great, which is to me a classic. And I love the whole idea of you have the things that you want to do, but then you have this like stop doing list, and it's having that discipline and that focus to say, we know that this is cool. This might be the flavor of the month. You might have seen this at a conference, but we have to hold off on that for a second because this is the focal point, and this is what we're dealing with now as a district, and this is what we believe in. And these are the 1, 2, or 3 things that we think that when you walk through our classrooms next year are going to help to promote that sustainable change. Sorry, go ahead.
I agree with I agree with you. But what do you do with those staff members who are doing really, really good things, but want to branch off on their own in terms of maybe trying something different that doesn't fully align with where everybody else is going in terms of like a district direction? If we're all taking on reading or we're all taking on a math component or whatever, and they really want to do something in the area of innovation, do you just have them tie that back in, or what do you say to those? What do you say to those staff members who are doing great things, but they want to try something different?
Yeah, and I think that's something that Tony, I think you asked that too, and I think one of the things I said was like, okay, so maybe like 75%. I'm just throwing out, numbers, exact numbers. Maybe like 75% is like, this is what the district or this is what the school believes in. And then they have that like flexibility with maybe like the remaining 25%. Okay. Or as somebody else asked me in regards to the post today, what if like you're focusing on writing workshop and there's a teacher in your district who's like already an expert at writing workshop. So you're planning on giving like 20 hours worth of running workshop. They're already an expert. They're sitting there. Like, why the heck do I have to be exposed to this? So,
Right.
And I think, under ideal circumstances, there should be some type of protocol in place for that.
Okay.
Like and I'm speaking idealistically because I haven't like done this, but like some type of like opt out form, or maybe like, you're the expert. Why don't you teach it? Mm-hmm. Or if you think that's a waste of, you obviously we want our staff facilitate teachers teaching teachers, or if they're like, that's kind of like a waste of time. Like, I don't want to do that. All right. Like, here's how maybe you could chart your own path and do something else with those 20 hours, but some type of formalized process. So.
Yeah, like I see Jessica's asking like a PD SMART goal. I think, yeah, we're ultimately saying is that we do want our teachers and our principals. I think, Joe, as a superintendent, you would say you want them to have some sort of goal, right? You want them to know what their learning is going to be about for the year or for half the year or whatever. Having it be anchored in something consistent across the district, I think, is also important, which is partly how your post, Ross, like spoke to me. We're in a small district in Jericho. There's 3 elementary schools, but you don't want those 3 elementary schools to be that different.
Right.
That the focal points are, so we're talking innovation, and down the street they're talking about how to use a basil in readers' work. That's not what you want to see. So there's got to be some consistency, but there's got to be flexibility for teachers to really pursue the things that work best for them, because the sit and get doesn't work for everyone. Although a good lecture might work for some people, whatever. So I think that idea that we're even having this conversation is so far beyond where, at least from me, I could say as a teacher, when I was a classroom teacher, I never had that type of PD. I got the PD they told me I had to get. And I got the coaching that they told me I had to get. And like, that was it. There was no choice. There was no voice. There was no conversation even. It was just, this is what we're doing. And so I feel like the fact that we're even considering these options has shown the progression that we've made, that many of us are making, not just the 3 of us, but in a lot of contexts. I think that's important.
Well, I think the other thing that to keep in mind is what Ross was saying about, let's be very careful about what the next best thing is.
Right.
And when that tends to take over the conversation, you really spend more time learning something that might go away. There are people that honestly, because superintendents move around so much, there are people that in districts that'll just say, well, I only got to wait 3 more years till that person's gone. And then somebody else will come in and maybe I'll like their stuff better. You know what I mean? And then, getting to the point where like, well, I only have 3 more initiatives and so I have to retire. I mean, that's awful. Right. But if you keep taking the approach that, I think Ross, you make a really great point in the area of, if you take the approach that, we're going to almost like that multiplier approach, get better at one thing and make sure that you sustain 2 of the things that you're already doing really well, and then go from there. My fear is that we build that into some sort of really, like numeric value that all of a sudden we're like, well, if we improve test scores by that %, obviously we're getting better. And I just don't truly believe that if it's not rooted in making sure that you're changing or that you're improving instructional practice, because depending on a test day, that could be an issue.
Listen, I totally agree with you, Joe, and I think that disconnect has to happen. We have to unlink the whole notion of high stakes testing to educator effectiveness and educator evaluation, because the 2 of them are not. You don't want to see the 2 of them grow necessarily in the same way, right? I mean, and good instruction should impact high test scores anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It should be a byproduct, really.
It should be a byproduct, right? And so the thing, though, that is important is when we do decide on a focal point, whether it's the teacher individually, whether it's a district as a whole, whether it's a building, whatever, we do need some sort of data to see if the work that we're doing is impacting kids.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Whatever it is, whether it's a survey to kids, whether it's a survey to the community, whether it's a conversation, whatever it is, we can also continue to work in a silo under the guise of being a 21st century school, because we're going to embrace an innovation or an innovator's mindset. That's great. What does that look like? How is that impacting our kids? How is it impacting our families? Oh, we're going to ditch homework at Canny Hint, hint. That's the way I'm hoping.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Do it today. Ditches, right? You would never know. But this idea is, what does that mean for our community? Yeah. Do they want to see that happen? Like, so there has to be some sort of assessment of the work that we're doing, whatever it is, to see how it's, affecting everyone around us. So.
Yeah. How do you measure progress? Right. That's the age old question, is like, I find that sometimes like we kind of like we kind of bash test scores when they aren't in our favor.
Right.
But when we do get good scores, it's kind of like, hooray, look at us, we're in the newspaper.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like it seems like a double-edged sword sometimes, but
and listen, they're not going anywhere, right? Test scores are not going anywhere. Although things are changing here in New York. I don't know what's going on in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. We're changing our state tests. They're going to look a little different this year. There's talk about a moratorium in the next 3 years to not use test scores for educator evaluation or whatever. But they're not going away. No one's eliminating the tests, so they are there. And I think we have to embrace that reality, but not let it define who we are as teachers and learners, and just allow it to kind of be there on the side and know that good practice will address those needs as well.
So Ross, before we, I mean, we've taken up some of your time already, but before you get out, can you tell us a little bit?
You're kicking me off. It's fine. Go ahead. One more thing. I was just
you could actually stay the whole time if you want, because I'd rather talk to you than Tony, actually, but that's fine.
No, Joe, I was going to stay here and not say anything. I thought just like this would improve your ratings. Go ahead.
We have no ratings, so yeah,
we don't have ratings.
Anywhere to go, but up at this point, that's good. But tell us, what when you think about how you, from an instructional technology standpoint, and from a district office standpoint, how are you able to empower teachers to do what they do and give them the latitude to do what they do and support that in your role?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it's just that face-to-face communication. And to be honest, in my role right now, I'm still kind of easing my way in, still getting used to it. 'Cause it's, I was a 4th grade teacher and I'm a K through 12 supervisor, but a lot of it's just that face-to-face communication, looking teachers in the eyes, looking teachers in the face, knowing that, that I care about what they're doing. I mean, this past week I was in a building walking around, teacher was having trouble with Google Classroom, or it wasn't in Google Classroom related. It was a problem that could have been solved through Google Classroom. I noticed it. I had a talk with one of the librarians. She's like, Ross, we need Google Classroom professional development. I'm like, all right, I'll take care of it. I made a note, less than a day later, I sent an email out to the staff, 8 to 8:30 in the morning, a couple weeks from now, I'll be in your building. If you want to join me for Google Classroom PD, I'd be more than happy to do it. I think things like that, you have to be in the trenches and you have to be listening to teachers face to face. As I say all the time, all the administrative meetings in the world, talking about the great things you do in your district. I mean, that's wonderful. Right. But if you're not in the classrooms and you're not listening to teachers, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that whole being in the classroom thing is overrated.
Yeah, right.
I like my office.
Well, if you're taking pictures on Instagram the whole time, then...
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
When we had a chance to have dinner with Ross, almost a month and a half, 2 months ago now. And one of the things I took away from that conversation, Ross, honestly, was I asked a pretty pointed question. I asked you, how often are you in classrooms from a central office perspective? And you said you want to be in people's space at least once a week. And to me, that develops relationships that you're not going to get just telling people how they should do stuff. I think you are absolutely 100% correct. If you're going to say, we'd like you to try something new, you better be there to have that conversation with them and help them through it. And if the only time that people see the superintendent or central office staff is when they need something, that's a real problem. And, I walked away from that conversation while laughing hysterically from other stuff. But at the same time, just knowing that if you're about relationships, you're going to get people to move in a different direction. So that's cool.
I do want to say one thing, Joe, because we talked about this yesterday, actually, at EdCamp New York City. And the question, it was actually Ross's superintendent who brought it up. So how do we change things? Right. So we're having all these great conversations, and how do we change things? And you touched upon it. This idea of learning coming first. You just mentioned being present in classrooms and engaging and Ross as a central office administrator and you as a central office administrator being those types of leaders who are present, who are not only in classrooms, but engaging in with what is going on in the classrooms. That puts the learning at the center. And I think that's the shift that we have to make collectively if we're going to change the whole narrative, if we're going to push the needle. We're not going to do it from an office. We're not going to do it at a conference table having a great meeting. Right. We're not even going to do it in a PD session. We're going to do it in a classroom. We're going to do it with kids. And I think that's just a minor thing, but focus the conversation on learning instead of teaching. And suddenly you've shifted things a bit, I think.
All right, I'll let you guys go.
Yeah, we're all getting out anyway, but we want to make sure that like if there are other things that anybody that's out there that what kind of things does everybody else do to empower their staff? Is there anything that people just do that they feel so strongly about? Tony, is there anything in particular that you just like this works? Do this tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think no. One of the things that we've done at Canning Egg is really give teachers choice in how we use our faculty meetings. So they're not just driven by me standing in front of the room and talking for an hour, which I could easily do.
Yeah, tell me about it. My God, I'm like bring your own no-dos.
They are given choice in how to use that time. And even that, just flipping the faculty meeting from a nuts and bolts administrative thing to an opportunity to learn has been, I think, empowering for all of us. And it's simple. You have them for 45 minutes. Let there be learning in that 45 minutes, because anything you can send in an email, send in an email. And how about you, Joe? Although you talked about earlier with the goals that you let your
yeah, I think the biggest thing is just giving them ownership of. I think what the next step, honestly, is like giving them an opportunity to demonstrate their learning the way that they want to demonstrate their learning. We had our team of people. Our team actually, Tony, you'll like this because you were there last year. Our team got selected to present at Model Schools this year in Orlando. Yeah,
that's awesome.
We're taking 6 people.
Great conference.
Develop this growth model, and they're going to go down. They're going to present. They're going to do great. I can't wait to hear them. And I'm just going to try to back off and introduce them and shout out everything I can about them, because they did some incredible work getting this thing together. But anyway, they put they put the process together. But one of the things that we didn't really talk about in the process, we have a very uniform how to demonstrate the learning that you've done throughout the course of the year. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that the next step for us is really to try to figure out a way for them to demonstrate their learning however they want. And so hopefully that'll work out.
I mean, clearly they have a supportive superintendent who encourages them and kind of moves out of the way. And that's often the biggest, one of the biggest hurdles is that we get in the way instead of moving out of the way. So
very true. Yeah, I get that. Yeah,
nice work there, Joe. Thank you for inspiring us and for sharing that idea and for getting us on Blab. I finally figured out how to get on.
That's great. Hey, that's true. And thanks to Ross for jumping in. We'll just try to keep bringing people in and having good conversations about what we can do to, just improve the environment for teachers to learn and staff members to learn and grow, and kind of hopefully, and I think we got to try next time, try to figure out what happens next in terms of not hoping that transfers to student learning, but then make sure that it transfers to student learning. And if our staff feel empowered to learn the way that they want, the next step is to make sure that they know that feeling can be had by all of their students too, if they get to demonstrate learning in their, with however they want to.
I think maybe down the road in the next few weeks, we get maybe a couple of our teachers on to have those conversations and share from their perspective how they feel empowered. You and I think, are intentional about trying to empower them, but just like we mentioned earlier, getting some data. So how do you feel? Do you feel empowered, or are you still feeling the same way and just we're rephrasing it or repurposing it? So I think that's important. All right. I have something to go write tonight. I have some writing to do tonight.
Yeah. Well, would you finish it? My goodness, we've been trying to talk about book proposal for how long now? Is that Parkinson's law, right? That John Kripa was talking about, whatever time is available, that's how much time it'll take. So if we would have given you a day to fix this, you would have had it all done by now. But yes, would you do that, please, so we can get a new book out? That's what we need to do.
Too. You have work to do.
I finished it. What are you talking about? It's all done.
All of it.
No, not so much. Okay, so I'll finish that part too. That's okay. Good. That's all right. Good. All right,
thank you to everyone who joined.
Thank you very much, everybody. Ross, thank you so much for joining it. I love that perspective. He's just got he's so on point. He is so on point.
He is. And his blog is definitely worth reading. Ross Coops 31.
Yes, but please make sure you understand there is no voucher for Cheesecake Factory in that. I mean, at all. But that's the only reason Tony read it, and here we are. Oh my gosh.
Have a great night, people. Thanks for joining us.
Take care, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.